You are listening to a curated clip from the Naturally Inspired podcast. Subscribe today at livenaturallyinspired.com. I wanted to talk about that for sure, because I can't find any information online about that. And, there hasn't been a whole lot of information distributed to parents about what will happen. So here in the States, schools have opened in some areas. I homeschool my kids, so they're not at school. Because right now they're taking temperatures at school and they're quarantining. But if someone gets a positive test, then they're dealing with presumptive cases as well, saying, well, they're presuming that they're positive, which
that's an illegal act right there.
And so they're quarantining, but they're not giving detail on protocol. Because they have these face scanners to go in and out of classrooms at school so that they can temp the kids. So what if someone... Yep. And so, and those are actually all over the States now. So you can't go into a public area without getting your face into an iPad to temp you. Mm-hmm. And if you temp high, nobody's saying what happens when you temp high.
So they have no screening whereby, well, what if I just have some other thing causing a high temperature?
I don't think there's any other reason to have a temperature right now other than COVID, right? I mean, really. No. So these kids are being quarantined. I don't know. It's not saying where they're being quarantined, if they test positive, if the teacher tests positive. I don't know. And I know that there's a lot of concern in BC right now as schools are getting ready to get back.
Well, we know that, there's two things we know. We've been talking to teachers and principals, and they all say the same thing. We don't know. We'll have more information. Now, I think that that's not accurate. They're just being fed a line to tell people about that.
Okay.
The other thing we know is there was a company that gave bribes to the Prime Minister Trudeau's cabinet. And the Prime Minister was about to be brought to trial for that. And then conveniently, COVID came along. But the same company, it's called SNC-Lavalin in Quebec. In Ontario, apparently they received a contract to build quarantine facilities in schools. And we're trying to see in the schools to actually hold children in the schools until parents agreed to have them and themselves vaccinated. So it's kind of a lever. Now, don't forget that whole presumption. Mm-hmm. It's illegal to even say that, because there's a thing called the Nuremberg standards in 1947. It came out of the doctors' trials at Nuremberg, where these Nazi doctors were experimenting on people in the death camps.
Yep.
And in fact, then came over to Canada and the U.S. and kept doing the same thing after the war. That's a whole other story. But anyway,
Project Paperclip.
Project Paperclip, yeah.
Yep.
But anyway, the Nuremberg principles in 1947, the past binding all nations who are members of the UN, said that the principle of free, informed consent governs all medical procedures, no exceptions.
And that's in the Nuremberg standards of 1947?
Yeah, I can send you the link to that.
Okay.
Of course, it might be disappearing rapidly from the internet, but it is a law passed that's been binding on all nations. And what it says basically is that if you haven't been given full information and you're being coerced in any way, you don't have to agree. In fact, it's illegal for you to agree to those principles. And we haven't been given informed consent. I mean, we haven't been informed of the truth at all. We've been misinformed at every level.
Look for Naturally Inspired Podcast on all podcast platforms, video platforms, or go to naturallyinspiredpodcast.com.